Hello, captains. This is Kent again, and welcome to the Flight Show. Today, I have the pleasure of giving you kind of a first impressions and a little bit of a run through of the new program released by Rex, which is Rex Skye Forces 3D. This is kind of a weather texture engine. It's a weather engine. And the first question I'm sure many of you are asking is this a replacement to Active Sky Next? No, it could be used independent of it, but it's also designed to sync with it. So what this provides are realistic or more realistic textures that would be associated with atmospheric conditions. And Active Sky Next is a program that basically reports to the computer what that weather might be. So it could be used independently or it could be used in conjunction with. So I know of you, for those of you that have invested in Active Sky Next, no, you do not have to abandon it. They can work together. So I thought I would just start off with the opening screen. This is what's known as the dashboard. And I'm going to just show you some of the things, and then we're going to look at what's going on in the actual program. So right off the back, you see down here you have a menu list. Now that is not to say that these are a bunch of functions and these are a bunch of functions. These functions are the same as these. It's just here they're tiles as a dashboard, and here it's a strip. In fact, if you click this, it extends so that you can see that those phrases here line up with these boxes here. So no big deal, just a couple of different ways that you can navigate. So the first thing we'll look at is the 3D cloud model. And what this does is it gives you some options as to what your clouds are going to have, which clouds you would have installed ready. These are, now look, I'm not a meteorologist, so a lot of these, some of these clouds I'm familiar with, some I'm not, and I might pronounce them wrong, but this is the Nimbus Stratus Overcast. You have the Stratocumulus Overcast or the Stratocumulus. You can decide what type of options you want here in terms of the variations. Do you want low precipitation, high precipitation, so you can have one or the other? Do you want low range shaft or a visible wall cloud? That's another thing that you can get into. Now this is what I would suggest you play with. I'm not going to in any ways recommend one way or the other. Just gonna show you what this program has to offer, because I'm sure there are a lot of you on the fence. Do I need to buy this program? I'll just say this right off the bat. Ever since I saw that it was released, it's been on my mind. Should I invest in it? Should I invest in it? It only took about 2 minutes of seeing what, if you were taking off in an overcast, and you were watching the plane go up into the clouds, and what you'd see as you look down, the effects that I saw right then said, okay, this is a must-have to complement Active Sky Next. I do not believe you're going to have buyer's remorse with this. But let's go on and continue. Like here, they'll even have tornado and funnel clouds as an option. So let's just keep going. So if I go back to the dashboard, let's look at environment. So here, there are different environments that you can have for the sun and the atmospheric conditions. So if you look here, we have the sun and atmospherics. So you can see the different shades that the sky can have. And you can, choose what you want in terms of which one best suits you. But there's some features later on where you don't even have to do this if you don't want to. It's actually pretty cool. Like, you can install this particular theme if you like, but just hold tight before you do. Okay, so we go back to the dashboard. We have the Flight Center. Now here, if any of you use Active Sky Next, you already know that what the weather wants to do is, rather than try to generate accurate weather everywhere, it wants to know what your flight path is, and it's going to put the most resources into the weather along that flight path. So this is where you would upload your flight plan, so it would have that information. Or you can have a community shared flight plan, maybe if you were online flying. Alright, so then we come over here to weather. And a really cool feature that this program has is you can load 7 airports to be your favorites, and it'll tell you the weather going on at that airport before you send up your airplane or you load up your sim, so that you can have an idea of what your weather's going to be like. So, like here, one of my favorite places is London Heathrow, which is Echo Golf Lima Lima, and it tells you right now it's 45 degrees Fahrenheit. And you can switch this to Celsius if you want, just so you know. It's partly cloudy. It's giving you barometric pressure, visibility in terms of miles. So wind speeds, direction, a little information about each airport that might be your favorite. Like take here, K Alpha Tango Lima. This is Atlanta. So just a really nice feature to have. Now, let me take you here to the map. You can actually look at what the weather is in a given geographic region. So, as you can see right now, I can actually superimpose where there's precipitation. So what you do, put your mouse where you want to see it, and then you hit the right mouse click, and it'll center on that spot. Now, I'm here in Nashville, so you think some programs let you click and zoom in, but here you want to go to this little menu bar, and it will zoom into that area. And as you can see, we have quite a bit of overcast over Nashville, and that's good because in a little bit I'm going to show you what that looks like when you're in an aircraft. And then here you can add different things, such as if you want to know the winds aloft. Let's just say you want to know the winds at the ground level. So you say the altitude, and then this is the wind speeds and directions depending on where you are. Pretty cool. But you don't have to have that showing if you don't want to. Maybe you want the temperatures. So at 3,000 feet, this is the temperatures going on right about now. Okay. So here, I don't know what this is. Active pilot reports. Pilot rep. So I guess that's what PIREP means, pilot reports. I'm going to have to find out exactly what that is. Is this AI aircraft? Is this people flying online that are reporting out? I don't know. We'll have to find out later. Let's see. Another interesting thing. If you have a flight plan loaded, you can hit this. And this also will center it on a given airport. And here it also shows your major road systems. Okay. Now, here is where you have different themes that are being, if I'm correct, these are themes being uploaded by people all over the world, and you might want to peruse their themes to see what they look like. So let's just go ahead and you could do a search for any particular one. Here, I think is where we click and see which theme. I guess not. Oh, I'm sorry. The different bank of is you would hit here. Yeah, we're all learning this together. So yeah, so there are 16 pages, and if you click one of these, this will show you the theme of that particular individual, and you can go ahead and actually install it. But before you do, I want to show you something else. Now this is pretty cool. This is designed to work with, if you have purchased PTA, which is P3D Tweak Assistant, it loads, this is by Matt Davies, if I remember correctly, and it gives you a lot of shaders to make your skies and your atmospheres look more realistic. But take a look what's going on the screen right now. Do you see how the day is progressing? Well, depending on where you are in the globe, you get different visual effects. And what this does is it gives you different themes for different geographic regions. Case in point, let's say I wanted to look at Humboldt Coast. I can hit preview, and this is what it's going to look like through the course of the day on this particular theme. And it goes from night, late morning, to noon. Now we're going to check out the afternoon. Notice how the sky's getting a little dimmer. Then we go into the early evening. So now you're at sunset. So you get to see what the sky looks like from morning, from basically dawn to dusk, to see if this is the theme that you want. And all you got to do is click over here and it installs that theme. So you could go with PTA, and like, you know, many people, like even Matt Davies has his particular favorites, and you can upload his profile and call it good. But you don't necessarily know what it is and what it's going to look like until you load the program. Here, you get to see the theme all through the day. And it will put it in the folder for PTA. By the way, if you do want PTA, you can go to www.simtweaks.com. And it's 14 pounds, which I guess is somewhere near, well, it's 14.99 pounds. So I guess that's somewhere near about $20 if you want to buy it. But it adds, it's basically shaders. And what it does is it affects what your atmospheric conditions look like. A really good enhancement to your flight simming experience. I highly recommend it. And even if you don't have it, you can do that independently here with Rex Skye forces. So let's just look at a couple of other themes. Chai here, worldwide and loving it. Now notice that the morning sky looked distinctly different than Cape Cod, which was the original one. I don't even remember what I'm running here, but let's just do a quick comparison. So this is noon at Cape Cod, at worldwide and loving it. Let's take a look at Minneapolis, St. Paul. So go ahead, peruse these, and see which theme really strikes your fancy, and then all you have to do, let's go down to New Zealand for a second. So then all you have to do is install, and you're good to go. So these are the options that you have for using Rex Skye forces, but let's go ahead and see what it looks like actually in the simulation. Okay, so here we are in the cockpit of the airplane. We're at KBNA, or Nashville International, and I thought I'd give you kind of a preview of what it looks like when you're in this and the weather engine is going. So let's just get on into the air. And I'm going to set the autopilot for 4,000 feet. Just so we've got some precipitation already. Let's pull back gently. Gonna raise the landing gear. So right off the bat, you can see that there is the effect of you flying through a low overcast cloud as you're leaving the runway and heading up into the sky, which is pretty cool because that effect, even Active Sky, didn't do as well until I loaded Rex. And as I said before, they work in conjunction with each other. Okay, so let's turn on the autopilot and we'll put it on heading. So now we're in a steady climb, and as you can see, we're in the clouds. Not a lot to see, but let's take a look at its subtlety. Notice that there's variations in the clouds, or the coloring of the screen, which shows that the clouds as you fly through them are not this, same color mass of gray. It varies as the cloud becomes denser and less dense. And you actually see this effect pretty well now. Now, did you have this effect in Active Sky Next? Yes, but I do not believe it was that dramatic. You would see the wing disappear a little bit and then come back into view as you were flying through a more dense or a less dense cloud. But when you were flying into the abyss, if you will, if you were flying through the cloud, you didn't necessarily see the variation in the coloring of the shades of this cloud as you were flying through it. So this is a pretty cool effect right here. Now, we're going to go up to 4,000 feet. I don't know how high this overcast is, but We're going to find out. See, as we're ascending a little over 1,000 feet per minute, almost 1,500, and that's cool. But ultimately, what we want to see is, what does this effect look like on the airplane? So now you can see kind of the vastness of the cloud that you're flying through. Now, I don't want to make comparisons to Active Sky Next because I'd have to rely on my memory, but what I will say is that in conjunction, we can at least say whether this looks good or not. And I believe it does. As you can see down there, Active Sky Next by itself, I will say, when you were looking down through the overcast, sometimes, depending on your angle, it would be like there's nothing there. There is no overcast. And then all of a sudden it's just a haze and everything's gone. Whereas now you got to see there was a gradual disappearance of the ground as the altitude increased. Now, as you can see here, we're seeing a variation in the layers. As you can see in the distance here, a little bit of the lighting versus here and here. So that's looking good so far. Let's get this back out. Okay, I may need to reboot my computer because right now I do not feel I'm getting the best of frame rates. And normally I have about 30, but we're around 11. Every time I do that, it just says that I got to reboot. But for now, I think this will do. So we're still increasing. Let's see. Well, we said 4,100, and we are still going up, which is good because evidently the altitude is not on. And that's fine because we wanted to continue to increase. But now the plane is starting to turn, so let's get our heading. We don't want the plane to flip over or anything like that while we're in this cloud. Okay. So now we have the heading autopilot on, flight director is on, and heading is set. So let's go ahead. Let's just set it to 9,000 to see if we can get above these clouds. Although right now I am controlling the ascension with trim. It's not the autopilot. So that's fine. Okay, now we're starting to get to the top of the clouds. And look. You see how the haze starts to gradually disappear? And then the next thing you know, you start to see the top of the clouds. That effect did not exist with simply Active Sky Next. So this is a really good complement. Now, there's a setting that they say that you have to have that you must sync the Rex with any other external active, any other weather engine. And so that is an effect right now. You may even actually get on your screen an announcement that your sync is successful. I remember seeing it, but I don't quite remember where. But okay, let's get outside the plane. Let's take a look around the cockpit right now. So for those of you, it doesn't matter if you fly yourself or if you've been in a commercial aircraft and you've just got over the clouds, this looks pretty darn good when you're flying over an overcast day. So I'm digging this. I can honestly say this is a nice enhancement. Oh, we got some cirrus clouds going on up there. That's looking good. Yeah, so I'm going to just have to say from my initial observations, this program is the business. And I'm only looking at one particular weather system, and that's, I particularly wanted to see what does it look like when I fly up into the clouds. You know what I mean? So what we're going to do here, now that we're above, well, let's get a look outside the aircraft, actually. Now, what would happen with active sky next is sometimes you would have rain, but then if you look down on the aircraft like this, you could see the ground and the clouds were kind of like, there was a little bit of a haze, but the clouds were gone. As we see now, these clouds are particularly shrouding the ground. And this really does add a sense of immersion to it. And, you know, as you know, I've said many times before, I try to focus on the viewer, though all viewers are welcome. I focus on the viewer that's kind of new to flight sim and try to give some tips on how to, you know, enhance your experience. One of the things that I think goes underappreciated is the value in a weather engine. Because depending on your atmospheric conditions, it can be very, very immersive and make it feel more and more like the real thing. So, yeah, that being said, I am really, even in my short time that I've been with this, which is a few hours, I would like to strongly say this is a program you might want to consider buying. Is it a must-have? I'm going to go that this would probably get on my must-have list. It really would. This really does complement the flight simming experience. And by the way, we're only looking at one particular aspect. Flying up into clouds on an overcast day, and how well did that weather mirror what was going on in the real world? Well, that was an overcast that we had here today. That's why I chose flying out of Nashville International. But then also, when you crack the clouds and you start to get on top, this is a lot of what you would see, depending on what type of overcast that you have. So if you're, you know, wanting to just get out and sim, you want to, you know, practice your instrument approaches and be in somewhat of a, like in a realistic weather engine, you definitely have that here. So I guess that's all I'm going to have to say on this for now. We're going to need to get into the details of this, maybe do another one after I can look at a variety of different weather conditions, a variety of different clouds. This also models tornadoes, so I don't know where there's a tornado going on in the world, but if I know there's one in the real world, I'm going to have to fly there and see what's going on to see how it models that. But thus far, I'm really pleased. I will say this, if you're new to simming and you're thinking about what's the next thing I need to invest in, it does not matter whether you're into, okay, so we're going back down into the clouds, or are we? We're still climbing. Oh, and we're still having a haze. That's cool. If you're into study level aircraft, or you're just into general aviation, simplistic flying, this still appeals to both. If you remember correctly, I had, when I was saying, well, what kind of things should you buy for your flight simulator? It kind of depended on if you like flying general aviation or commercial aircraft. This is one program that I can say, it doesn't matter if you're into commercial aircraft, it doesn't matter if you're into general aviation, both will benefit from, with an immersive experience by purchasing this software. So, for what it's worth, Kent's recommendation, it gives it a thumbs up. This is definitely a program that I believe you're going to want to have. It gives you a lot of variety. Go ahead and experiment. Now, what type of system do you need? Does it bog your system down? I don't think it does. So I'm back up. I'm at 20. I'm now, like I said, I get stutters, and that just requires that I boot the computer fresh, and everything usually works well after that. But it's looking pretty smooth right now. I'm at 20 frames per second. Usually I'm about 30. But a reboot, I think, would really solve that problem. But my point that I was going to make is, it does. If you, depending on what scenery you buy, it kind of depends on whether you're a commercial person or a general aviation person. Because if you're commercial, you're going to be flying high and fast, and so you don't need a whole lot of general scenery. You need airports. But here, you really benefit no matter if you're into general aviation or commercial aviation. The weather is going to be a factor in either world, so you get more bang for your buck by having this to help your sense of immersion rather maybe say a program that's only specific, like an airport, because you're only going to enjoy that airport while you're at that airport. So would I put this before getting an airport? Yes, I would. It's really cool. So I hope you enjoyed my review. If you have any questions or anything that you want me to specifically look at and talk about, please leave a comment. So I'm going to ask you to, leave me a couple of likes. And maybe what I think I'll do is end this by letting you see me land this bad boy in some precipitation. All right. Hope you enjoyed. Mission accomplished. Make sure you leave me a couple of likes, subscribe, and I'll see you in the virtual skies.